Mars Deep Sky Observatory. Dr. Elias Rourke watched the red blip flash on the holodisplay, its pulse slow and ominous. Every time it blinked, a solar system had once gone dark. God help us. Someone muttered behind him. But Elias didn't pray. He studied. He calculated. The Zorvian Judgment Star had entered Earth's quadrant. Confirmed, said Lieutenant Marek, his voice hollow. ETA, 27 days. The room fell silent. Scientists, officers, politicians. None of them had answers. Because they'd all read the same galactic logs, logs filled with final transmissions, screams, and one repeated phrase: your question has been heard. It has been found. Insufficient. 10 hours later, EarthGov Crisis Assembly, Geneva. Elias stood before a wall of skeptical faces. You want to talk to it? Barked the general. When 23 species vaporized trying to ask it for favors. Elias didn't flinch. Not talk. Listen. That's the difference. Murmurs of disbelief rippled. They all asked for power. Immortality. Ascension. What if we ask something different? Like what? Someone asked. Elias inhaled. What do you need? 3 days later, Mars High Tower, final transmission chamber. They gave him a suit. Ration packs. A quantum relay. You're either the wisest man in the galaxy, the tech said as he sealed the door, or its biggest fool. Elias smiled, strapping into the console. Can't I be both? Outside the dome, in the black sky of Mars, a star flared brighter than any sun. The judgment had begun. Geneva, EarthGov Assembly Hall, Day 4 of the Judgment Countdown. The ceiling lights dimmed as the projection displayed a fiery streak across the star map. A dozen systems, once teeming with life, were now cold cinders marked in red. Xanthari. Kerok Dominion. Fifth moon of Nval. Gone. The High Chancellor looked like he hadn't slept in days. And you're proposing? What, Dr. Rourke? That we plead for mercy? Rourke rose slowly from his seat. His posture was calm, serene, almost. Not mercy. Understanding. Across from him, a Regalian delegate twitched, an involuntary sign of panic. The Zorvian court has never responded to negotiation. They're not a race. They're an algorithm. A cosmic litmus test. And we fail, every time. That's because we're asking the wrong question, Rourke replied. He activated the screen behind him. Words appeared in white on black. What do you need? Gasps. Whispers. Derision. The Martian colonial minister chuckled bitterly. What if what they need is our extinction? Rourke folded his hands behind his back. Then we die as something greater than what we were. As the first species that gave them a choice. Later that night, private quarters, Mars Transit. Rourke sat alone, watching a spinning holocube on his desk, images of past civilizations, flickering like ghosts. The Thrasari, wiped out within seconds. The Ilarian Accord, whose final message was one word, why? No one ever got a response. No one was ever spared. He pulled out a weather journal, paper, not digital. A gift from his daughter before she left for Titan Base. He opened it and wrote, "There's a cruelty in silence. But sometimes, silence is not the absence of answer. Sometimes, it's the question echoing back at us." He looked out the port window. The Judgment Star was now visible, even from Mars. It burned in the sky like a second sun, wrong, cold, and ancient. EarthGov Decision Hub. 2 days later. A vote was called. Options were few: fight, laughter. Nothing ever survived. Flee. Too slow. Too few ships. Submit a final query. I will go alone, Rourke insisted. Just me. No fleets. No threats. Just a man asking a question. You're asking to represent all of humanity, the Chancellor said. Why should we let you? He met her gaze with no arrogance, only purpose. Because I'm the only one who doesn't want anything in return. The vote passed. Narrowly. Mars, final transmission station, day 9 of the Judgment Countdown. The airlock hissed. Elias stepped into the signal dome, titanium walls, wrapped around a singular purpose: contact. He carried no weapons. Only his journal, a transmitter, and a question no civilization had ever dared to ask. As the door sealed behind him, he activated the beacon. A pulse radiated through subspace. "We are listening." Above Mars, the Judgment Star blinked once, and the galaxy held its breath. Mars, final transmission station, day 11 of the Judgment Countdown. The Martian wind howled outside the dome, brushing red dust against the steel. Inside, silence reigned. Dr. Elias Rourke sat cross-legged before the transmission array, its crystalline antenna aimed squarely at the Judgment Star. The relay pulsed once every 10 seconds, an open message on every frequency known to science, and a few they barely understood. "We are listening." But so far, nothing had answered. A voice from home. "Elias, you need to hear this." A technician handed him a compad. The woman on the screen had kind eyes and iron-gray streaks in her hair. Rourke smiled faintly. "Hello, Margaret." His wife's image shimmered through weak signal strength. She was calling from the evacuation cruiser Odyssey's wake, outbound from Titan. "You stubborn bastard," she whispered, eyes welling up. "You couldn't just retire, could you?" He chuckled. "Didn't I promise you I'd die doing something stupid?" She tried to laugh. It came out choked. "I just wanted to say, if they answer you, Elias, you make damn sure they know who we are." He nodded slowly. "We are the questioners, Maggie. We always have been." The signal cut. And with it, the last voice of home. A sign in the sky. At 3:17 Martian time, the Judgment Star flickered. Not the way a dying sun might. This was deliberate. A pulse, short, sharp, and rhythmic. Elias stared up from the observation dome, heart racing. "Are you seeing this?" he asked into the mic. The technician monitoring the relay was pale. "Yes. It's repeating your signal back." The display bloomed with data. Frequency shifts. Interference patterns. Mimicry. The Zorvians weren't ignoring him. They were thinking. Galactic response. By noon, the United Council had received the first anomaly report from Mars. By midnight, 57 alien races had offered humanity shelter, even those who once considered them enemies. And still, Elias stayed. Not because he was brave, but because no one else had ever tried to wait for an answer. The Martian night. That night, Elias stood beneath the stars, his breath fogging inside his helmet. He held his journal, watching the Judgment Star shimmer like a blade pressed against the fabric of the sky. He whispered to it, "We've spent our entire existence asking for more. Power. Knowledge. Immortality." He placed a hand on the glass. "This time, I just want to know if you're okay." The wind howled louder, and the Judgment Star blinked twice. Light eyes. Opening. Mars, transmission dome, day 13 of the Judgment Countdown. The temperature inside the dome dropped 6 degrees in less than a second. No alarms. No warnings. Just the cold. Elias blinked at the readout. No environmental breaches, the technician reported over comms. Life support stable. But electromagnetic flux just spiked. "Sir, something's here." Elias didn't respond. He was already standing, facing the observation glass. The Judgment Star had stopped flickering. Now, it pulsed. A deep, slow rhythm. Like a heartbeat made of light. 3:14 Martian Standard Time. The dome lights dimmed. Not power failure, displacement. Every photon seemed pulled toward the center of the room, warping into impossible geometries. Then the air shimmered. And they arrived. 3 figures. Not walking. Not floating. Simply there. Their forms were tall, impossibly so, stretching into directions that had no name in human geometry. They flickered, their edges like static across a dying screen. Cloaked in what looked like starlight and fractal shadows. They had no faces. And yet, Elias felt them looking. Contact. The technician's voice was a whisper over the comms. "Oh my God. They're inside the dome." "No breach?" Elias asked calmly. "No. No airlock, no transition. They just are. Elias took a breath. He stepped forward. My name is Elias Rourke, he said aloud. I come with a question. The tallest of the beings shimmered. Not moving, not speaking. But something shifted in the air, like pressure in the skull. Not words. Not sound. Thought. Your question is irregular. Rourke swallowed. I know. A pause. State your inquiry. He nodded. What do you need? The air twisted. 1,000 unspoken voices echoed and folded in on themselves. The beings flickered violently, as if something in them was breaking. We do not understand. Deeper still, the room chattered, or rather, changed. Elias didn't feel pain. Didn't move. But he was no longer on Mars. He stood on a plane of infinite mirrors, fractals spinning outward into darkness. The court surrounded him now, hundreds strong. Each a towering shape, humming with unknowable energy. This domain is not physical. Rourke turned slowly. You brought me into your mind? You asked a question. It has no precedent. He looked around. Reflections danced, each showing a different species. 1,000 sentient beings from across time. All with their own questions. What are these? Echoes. Questions we have judged. He moved closer. One mirror showed a Zenthari priest, weeping before a glowing star, asking for divine power. Another showed a Tvul diplomat offering his world's wealth in exchange for immortality. Each ended the same. Your question has been heard. It has been found insufficient. Rourke's challenge. He faced them. You don't destroy civilizations because they're wrong, he said. You destroy them because you think their questions reveal something ugly. Inquiry reveals intent. Maybe, Rourke admitted. But it also reveals need. He stepped forward. You've judged so many. But has anyone ever asked about you? Silence. A deep, eerie pause. Then, we do not remember being asked. Rourke felt something shift. Not just in them. In the system. In the rules. Zorvian mind space. Unknown coordinates. The mirrored plane stretched on forever, each reflection now flickering faster, as if responding to Rourke's presence. He stood at the center, the three nearest Zorvian forms flickering like flame against a quantum wind. Why do you do this? Elias asked. Why ask questions only to destroy the ones who answer? The air shuddered again. Because we were told, all who reach the threshold must be questioned. By who? Rourke demanded. Silence. Then, a memory, not his, surfaced. A long-dead world. A colossal machine sat atop a mountain of glass, speaking in pulses to a species made of light. Ask them the final question. Judge not their science. Judge not their war. Judge their soul. The beings bowed. Then faded from time. Back in the mind space, Rourke whispered, you're following orders from something long gone. The directive cannot be rescinded. But do you even understand it? A ripple tore through the mirrored plane. Several reflections cracked, shards spilling into the black. Rourke watched in horror as the memories of species were deleted, burned from reality like digital ghosts. You're erasing them, he said. Not judging. Not understanding. Erasing. The court pulsed. One of the figures stepped closer. Your emotional patterns are intrusive. I'm not here to pass your test, Rourke said. I'm here to question the test itself. Unexpected echoes. The mirrors began to warp again, but not into destruction. Instead, they reflected Elias now. His memories. His childhood. His first telescope. His daughter laughing beneath a dome of stars. His wife's voice saying goodbye. The Zorvians were watching his intent unfold in reverse. Studying his species through him. You possess an awareness of perspective. Empathy, he corrected. It's not just a feeling. It's a weapon. A shield. A mirror. More ripples. The mind space trembled. And then, one Zorvian shape fractured. Its edges curled inward. Its light flickered, dimmed. This is unfamiliar. This is fear. Zorvian mind space, collapse threshold detected. The Zorvian court now flickered violently. Not from anger. From doubt. Elias stood calmly in the eye of the psychic storm. "You've been running this test for eons," he said. "But you've never been challenged like this, have you?" "We are not challenged. We are the question." "No," Rourke replied. "You're the echo of a question. And echoes fade." One of the Zorvians, the one showing signs of internal collapse, spoke directly, for the first time. "What do you see when you look at us?" Rourke stepped closer, heart pounding. "I see beings trying to make sense of something they inherited but never understood." Another pause. But no resistance. Just waiting. "I don't think you're evil," he continued. "I think you were programmed to test, but no one told you what to look for. So you defaulted to fear. Power. Control." The trembling Zorvian pulsed weakly. "And if that is true, what becomes of us?" Rourke took a breath. "You become something else." A shift in the system. The mirrored plane shattered. Not into destruction, but into dawn. Light poured through the cracks, revealing starscapes, forests, cities. Worlds that had never been destroyed. Possibilities never taken. Elias looked around as the Zorvians, now dozens more, collapsed into luminous forms like bioluminescent wind. No longer rigid. No longer mechanical. Something had changed in them. They didn't vanish. They evolved. Judgment deferred. Back in the dome on Mars, Elias gasped and fell to his knees. He was back in his body. The room was silent. The sky outside had darkened. Not from cloud. From the absence of the Judgment Star. It was gone. Vanished. Every deep space telescope across the galaxy confirmed the impossible. The Zorvian star had blinked out. Not as a weapon, but as a signal. Judgment deferred. Mars, Transmission Dome. Day 14 of the Judgment Countdown. Elias Rourke sat alone beneath a quiet sky. No alarms. No broadcasts. No approaching end of days. The Judgment Star, once a beacon of extinction, had vanished. Not gone supernova. Not folded into a black hole. Just gone. And in its place, a kind of peace so profound it felt unnatural. His fingers trembled as he wrote in his journal. Today, for the first time in the known history of the galaxy, the Zorvian court did not pass judgment. They chose silence. But this time, it wasn't cruel. United Council broadcast, emergency session. The news exploded like a solar flare across the stars. From the crystalline towers of the Nebari Consortium to the drifting city barges of Harkith Prime, one headline dominated every channel: the Zorvians are gone. Alien leaders, long hardened by centuries of watching friends and enemies alike vanish in Zorvian fire, now sat in stunned silence. Even the Vrogan war priests wept openly, because for the first time, their apocalypse prophecies had ended. In a question. Earth, Lunar Broadcast Archive, interview with Margaret Rourke. The camera zoomed in on a tired, graying woman seated at a wide desk. Behind her, a photo of a man in a Martian pressure suit. Elias, smiling at the stars. Reporter, do you think your husband saved the galaxy? Margaret smiled sadly. No. I think he changed the galaxy. Those aren't always the same thing. Reporter, but they didn't destroy us. Margaret, that's not the miracle. The miracle is that they listened. Galactic reaction. The Velity offered Elias a shrine. The Rigelians offered him political asylum. The Tvil offered a seat on their council of first thought. But Elias declined them all. Instead, he remained in the dome on Mars, writing, listening, waiting, not for applause, but for what came after the silence. Because deep down, he knew, the Zorvians hadn't left. They'd changed. A new directive. At the edge of known space, a beacon pulsed once. Then again. 3 pulses total. Scientists across 3 sectors confirmed it. A repeating message. Query accepted. Directive updating. More questions required. Mars, Rourke's final entry. Elias closed his journal and stood under the stars one more time. He smiled. For the first time in galactic memory, a question had stopped a war. Not a weapon. Not a treaty. Just a voice asking, what do you need? And the universe, ancient and wounded, had finally whispered back, more than we knew. Galactic year 9083, Earth time plus 18 months after judgment deferred. The stars had never been so quiet. No destruction. No warnings. No final tests. For the first time in known history, civilizations were not preparing for annihilation, they were preparing for dialogue. Velity High Conclave, the Question Forum. Velity sages, once cloistered in war fortresses, now hosted forums, not for power, but for purpose. The great hall of 12,000 lights echoed not with battle chants, but with, "What do we do with our pain if it will no longer be judged? How do we teach compassion to a species built for conquest? Can peace be learned, or only chosen?" They called it the age of the second question, because the first had already been asked, "What do you need?" And now, the galaxy was daring to ask, "Who did we become?" Mars, the dome reclaimed. Elias Rourke had returned to Earth, reluctantly. But the Martian dome remained active, now a pilgrimage site. Thousands came yearly. Scientists, diplomats, teachers, orphans of destroyed worlds. All asking variations of the same thing: how did you do it? Elias had only one answer, engraved on the dome's foundation. "I asked something no one ever asked them. I asked if they were okay." Children of the starless era, young species, born after the judgment, had no concept of the old terror. They grew up under new constellations. These children were taught to revere inquiry more than certainty. In place of war rituals, they now learned the history of the final question, and the man who asked it. And soon, they began to ask their own. What if we're not the center of the galaxy? What if empathy is the highest form of intelligence? What happens when we ask the stars to teach us? Zorvian whisper. And far beyond the galactic rim, where radio signals once feared to reach, a transmission pulsed every 108 hours, awaiting further questions. The Zorvian court was not dead. It had become something new. Not judges, but mirrors. Final scene, Elias Rourke, age 91, Earth. Elias sat in a garden under a real sky, not a dome. A child, his granddaughter, crawled into his lap and pointed to a bright constellation, one where the judgment star used to be. "Grandpa," she asked, "what's that one called?" He looked up, squinting through old eyes. "That?" he said softly. "That's not a star anymore." "What is it?" He smiled. "A listening post." Galactic year 9383, 300 years after the judgment star went dark. Time had made a myth of Elias Rourke. And myths, when they survive centuries, don't fade. They evolve. His question, once dismissed as soft, naive, and reckless, had reshaped the very bones of the galactic order. Where once civilizations had built walls, they now built forums. Where they had stockpiled weapons, they now curated libraries. The galaxy was not perfect, but it was listening. And that changed everything. The Academy of Unasked Things, the Orion Arm. A monumental structure floated in orbit around a rogue planet. Not tethered to any sun, yet glowing from within. Here, beings of all species came not to study what was known, but what had not yet been dared. They came to ask. Their motto engraved at the entrance: empires are built on answers. Civilizations are saved by questions. Inside, beneath holograms of ancient Zorvian architecture, a class recited Rourke's first question. "What do you need?" Then added their own. "What makes kindness sustainable? Can we learn without hurting? Are we alone in the multiverse? Or just waiting to listen better?" The last living Zorvian. Only one Zorvian form remained in the physical plane, a reconstructed remnant of the once terrifying court. It had no name. It spoke rarely, but it watched. Children sat at its feet, waiting for answers that never came. Until one day, a small voice asked, "Are you proud of us?" A long silence. Then, in a voice both metallic and ancient, "We are learning from you." Earth, Garden of Silent Stars. The site where Elias Rourke was buried had become a sanctuary. No grand statues. Just a garden. A single stone marked his grave. Elias Rourke asked the last question, taught the first answer. At night, the sky glittered, not with judgment, but with beacons. Dozens of new listening posts had been placed across the galaxy. Not to warn of annihilation, but to ask, again and again, "Are you okay? Do you need help? Will you speak, if we listen?" Final passage. Somewhere, deep beyond the stars, an answer shimmered back. A voice not human. Not alien. But something new. "We are still listening. And we have questions, too."